Always like having something to work towards, having a carrot dangling at the end of the stick. I think that helps me a lot. And I notice at the times when I'm not feeling my best, or is the times when I don't have a clear set goal to work towards. And I got a really interesting question yesterday. I was just doing a question box on my story, and they're like, "Oh, Rob, your life, looks great now. You got the villa in Marbella, you got a great network, you built a good physique, it all looks great on paper." But they're like, "Are you any happier than when you were just starting out on YouTube and just starting out in the fitness industry?" And I really had to think about that, and I was like, no, no. I was just as happy working towards my first 5,000 subscribers. And I think so many people could just do it, even set themselves small goals, and just being on that path is really a way to just feel great about yourself and feel fulfilled.
Rob, how are you doing?
I am great. Thank you for asking, sir.
No, not at all, not at all. Have you always been this positive? Does it come naturally, or is it something you've trained?
Well, so I'm literally just, I'm starting my day. I've finished a workout, right? It's Tuesday, so reason into the week. I'm sipping some pre, so you've caught me at an exceptionally good time, all right? This is peak right now. But of course, I have my bad days. But doing stuff like this, podcast, talking to other people, talking to other motivating people, it actually kind of almost forces you to put your best foot forward. So in situations like this, I'm at my best and I'm always happiest. But no, I have my down days, but my default is usually pretty good.
What about growing up? Because I have vivid memories from my end growing up where I was in my room at school and it was you and tuning. 7, 8 years ago, it must have been. I can't even actually place when it would have been, but proper OG days before sour strips from Max, before any of the before any leverage businesses at your end from YouTube. It was all just go mad, vlog everything, be as entertaining as possible. I remember those days well.
Yeah.
But what age were you when you first started YouTube?
So I was 22 when I uploaded my first YouTube video, and I am 30 now, the big 30. I'm like, oh my God, saying that out loud. But so at the time, I remember you see so many kids nowadays and they're 18, 19, 20, and they're these internet gurus, these they're blowing up on YouTube and everything, and I'm like, oh my God, they are so ahead of the game. And I talk to these kids nowadays and they're comparing themselves to those lads, and I'm like, fellas, I didn't even start till I was 22. I didn't even do it full time till I was 25. Didn't really have it figured out till 26. Only the last 3 years am I kind of getting into the flow of things. So it takes such a long time to really, get into the flow of things, get where you want to be. And nowadays with, Instagram, YouTube, everything, we look at the extreme examples of people who are just, hyper successful individuals, and we compare ourselves to them. But so long answer there. I started when I was 22, but I only got into the swing of things 25, honestly. But so when I met Max, who's still to this day one of my best friends. I'm going to Vegas next month, I think. I was with him not too long ago as well in America. I do a lot of trips to America. But I think I first met Max, it would have been at Body Power or something when I was 23, 24. But so from YouTube, I've met just some of the best people ever. And I'm so glad that I continue on with those relationships. So appreciate you tuning in. Excuse the pun.
Very good, very good.
I'm like, why doesn't he use that more often? Appreciate you tuning in since back in the day. But yeah, it's been a while. 22 is when I started. I'll never forget September 1st, 2014 is when I uploaded my first YouTube video. That's when my life changed forever.
Funnily enough, I opened up my YouTube analytics this morning and it's your channel's birthday. So I thought I had no idea when I put the first YouTube video up, but now I know. So I've actually got a date to work
way!
from.
Oh my God.
So yeah, as of this morning, I now know what date to look forward to every year moving forwards. But
we should get it tattooed.
Forehead.
Yeah, it's just extreme.
Yeah. So the reason I ask is because at 22 years old, you've got some formative years behind you. You've got growing up in Ireland. You've got a lot that's made you the person that you are. But picking up a camera is something that is intimidating for a lot of people. It's something that doesn't come naturally, but you have always been very positive, very outgoing, very energetic on camera. Is that something that you had to train? Did it come completely naturally to you? What was it about your upbringing that made you that way, if it was something that just happened?
So I was actually very negative and hard on myself in my teen years. I was led to be the joker of the class, okay? Made sit up front in every single class, always messing, always fooling around, getting suspended, getting held back, getting detention. And that led me to believe that I wasn't a serious person. And I was really self-deprecating. And I always was like, oh yeah, I'm going to fail this exam. I'm going to fail this. And I tried to pass it off as funny. And, you know, tried to always really hard on myself and tried to be like, yeah, I'm just that guy. And that actually, like, when I have a son, when I have all my sons, if I have, like, you know, a son or daughter or kids growing up, I'm going to really tell them to not be like that. Because being like that, self-deprecating in school, actually led on to, you know, later into my early 20s, to think that, like, I was undeserving, or think that I wasn't good enough, or think I wasn't a serious person. So it's so interesting how what you tell yourself, even at a really young age, can have such carryover into your adult life. So I was not a positive person. I was very self-deprecating, very hard on myself, and that led me to actually, my default was being negative and kind of expecting the worst. And then I failed, like, all my college exams. I, you know, failed first year twice. I had to repeat the year. I ended up saying, I just cannot do this. And I said I needed a complete mindset switch. And this was about the age of 21. And I started reading books like The Secret. I started watching loads of, like, which is the ultimate basic bitch book. Like, it's like entry level positivity. I started looking at loads of videos on YouTube. This is why I have so much love for YouTube. It changed my life. I've learned more from YouTube than I have from anything. And I just end up completely switching my default mindset. And I end up getting rewarded for that immediately. I found when my thoughts just defaulted to optimism, that more opportunities ended up coming my way. And I walked around differently. I carried myself differently. And I realized that I was just speaking to myself wrong for so many years. So it was when I kind of hit rock bottom, and, you know, I say rock bottom, not like, you know, out on the street, but it was when I was really lost in life. I, you know, failed all my exams. I didn't have any job. I got fired from loads of different jobs. I kind of saw nowhere to go. It's when I was like, okay, I need to change my mind. I need to change the way I think. And then I started, you know, again, listening to more stuff and thinking, hey, what am I good at? What am I really passionate about? And that was actually social media, of course, and fitness. You know, and still to this day, I think fitness, your health and your fitness is the most important thing in the world. Be it your mental fitness or your physical fitness. I think it's the most important thing in the world, and I'm just a true believer in that. So it's when I told myself, okay, what do I really like to do? What am I into? And that's when life started to improve dramatically. And that's when I started the YouTube. I started, you know, writing little Facebook posts, and that's when I started getting some real traction in life.
At 21 years old, it's quite mature of you to be able to ask those questions and be able to make the decision to, right, I am going to take one step forwards and make a change, because a lot of people don't have faith that one step forwards can actually have a change once momentum builds, because one step forwards doesn't seem like you've done much, but also 50 steps forward seems so far away that what's the point in really starting? But you coming to that state of mind obviously came from a sort of place of desperation, not being content with your life. But given that that was a key part of you growing up, are there days now where you feel you have to fight against that version of yourself, where you feel like the negative voice, the inner critic is coming out to play? Or do you think you've completely rewired your mindset whereby your default is now positivity?
No, you definitely still have, and not even certain days, like blocks and periods of time. Like, you can have maybe a bad month or a bad season where things are just all hitting you at once. But understanding that life comes and goes in waves helps a lot, and you kind of just got to ride the waves. And if you're feeling these negative emotions, that it's okay, and that you're gonna, you know, you might hit your upward spiral again soon. So it doesn't always have to be just perfect. You'll have bad days, you'll have bad weeks, you'll have bad months, but as long as you know that's not forever, it's not a constant thing, then you'll be all right. But no, of course, I have bad weeks, I have bad months, but I try to revert to the optimism as much as possible. Life is more fun that way.
It's interesting you mentioned seasonality just before, because I've heard you speak about the way that you approach workload. And I think there's pros and cons for viewing things in different ways, and obviously different things will work for different people. But from what I've gathered from the way you talk about things, you almost go through blocks of as you would with training. You go through blocks of time where you devote it to a certain task, a certain workload, which means that other things are completely off the table, rather than potentially the flip side where you have a busy period of time workload, but you also have things on top of that. Am I right in saying that you almost periodize your work to get a task done, and then it's kind of all work, all play, back to work, rather than weaving the two as you go? Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. So I do little monk mode seasons, okay? And I actually watched a really good video from you about, talking about alcohol and how you can balance it with fitness. I just watched that before this. And, you made such great points to that. And so I have my little monk mode seasons. So I think everyone could do with this as well. Instead of always trying to be perfect or always in grind mode, pick your battles really, and pick times of the year where it's easy for you to succeed. So for example, with your fitness goals or even business goals as well, I find January, February and March just really easy to just kind of go, monk mode, zone out from everything and focus on yourself and your goals. Then I think, for example, June, July, August, the summer months, I'll focus that on relaxing, traveling a bit. And then afterwards, September, October, November, I think they're really good times as well. So I think there's 2-3 month periods of the year that are really good times to focus on your fitness and your fitness and your productivity goals. And then there's better times of the year when you relax a little bit. So I absolutely do. I periodize the grind. And I think it's a great way to be. And some people, depending on your career or depending on your overall lifestyle, will have months where they should take the foot off the gas a little bit and relax. And then they'll have months where they should floor it. And it's kind of like auto-regulation in your training. You look at the week ahead and you say, hey, should I step on the gas this week or should I pull it back a little bit? So I think that's something that a lot of people could, employ into their own routine and see a lot of benefits from.
So there's two things there. First of all, it makes me snigger that the only month that you didn't mention was December, and I think, like myself, that's probably because it's the one month that we just don't talk about. So much mulled wine and mince pies that actually it's just a bit of a blur. Am I working? Am I training? Who really knows? But it's the only month you didn't mention it. We'll just ignore that. We'll just forget about that one. But secondly, I'm kind of the same. But the one caveat I'll add is from my own experiences. I generally do things quarterly, the way that my training cycles tend to run, because also, even if I've got this big, massive, hairy, scary goal, I don't think I can really psychologically get excited about something if it's more than 6 months away. So I need to almost look at things in almost maximum 6 months training periods. And yes, there's a sort of build up, but then there's a time to specialise. And when the time to specialise comes, I need to structure everything around what that main focus is, which means that social interaction will drop. Time spent doing certain things at the weekend will drop because it needs to be replaced by work or training, etc., etc. And I found that very valuable for me. But there is a point where there is diminishing returns, where if I don't have any time to socially interact or to go on a long dog walk without headphones in on my phone or that sort of stuff, actually it can send me the other direction, where all of the workload that I'm enjoying actually becomes so overwhelming that all of the joy is taken away from it momentarily. So are you completely content in putting your foot down and going full send in periods of time, knowing that there's something on the other end because you've practiced it so many times over the years? Or are there certain things that you maintain as habits that keep you relaxed when the workload gets tough in those monk mode periods, in those full send periods of time?
I always like having something to work towards, having a carrot dangling at the end of the stick. I think that helps me a lot. And I notice at the times when I'm not feeling my best, or is the times when I don't have a clear set goal to work towards. And I actually saw a really good podcast with, funny enough, Tyson Fury, talking about, with Joe Rogan, talking about times he was depressed or unmotivated. It's when he doesn't have a goal to work towards. And I think so many people need to set themselves, this is why I think goal setting is so important. Some people need to set themselves a clear goal, just something to work towards. And I got a really interesting question yesterday. I was just doing a question box on my story, and they're like, oh, Rob, your life, looks great now. You got the villa in Marbella, you got a great network, you've built a good physique. It all looks great on paper. But they're like, are you any happier than when you were just starting out on YouTube and just starting out in the fitness industry? And I really had to think about that. And I was like, no. I was like, I was just as happy working towards my first 5,000 subscribers as I am working towards like building a villa now. You know, like maybe I was actually happier just trying to get the five.
Don't ask that question. Don't ask that question. Exactly.
But it's just so interesting that I think so many people could just do it, even set themselves small goals, and just being on that path is really a way to just feel great about yourself and feel fulfilled. But I think it's so important, no matter what, even if it's a big goal or a small goal, just having something to work towards. So to answer your question, I always feel great when I have something to motivate me to, focus.
I completely agree, and I think that the important thing is to make sure, because this is the trap I've fallen into when I was younger, is the carrot is not what defines you, and getting there needs to be a process that you can enjoy and sort of relish as you go, because if you're working towards the carrot, the majority of the work is done along the way, not at the end. So process-driven goals are far more important than black and white metrics of I want to earn £1 million, because if you're at 999,000, you're like, if you're discontented with 999,000 because you set this black and white carrot metric in your head, obviously trivial example, but you know what I mean. It's the case of you need to enjoy the process of building towards the carrot as well as the carrot itself, which is one of the harshest lessons that I learned from sort of my experience over the years as we go. But I think let's rewind a bit, just because I love having this conversation, which is that I know that you were drawn to the gym in the first place as part of the Z's era.
Yes.
It was the real draw of our generation that got us in there, and I have a lot of friends that were part of our entry point to fitness, to training, was I want to be jacked like that Australian geezer.
Yeah,
and a lot of us are still here, which is very exciting.
It's crazy.
It's great. It's incredible to know how much of an impact that had, but also makes it sad that actually it was cut short for sort of the reasons that it was. But
yeah.
Thinking back, what was it that drew you, against the background of being the joker of the class, the person at the front, academically struggling? What was it intrinsically that drew you to the gym in the first place? What was the value you were looking for? Because obviously that's something that you found and you've carried with you to this point, but your life is very different to how it was when you probably first picked up that first dumbbell, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you know what, that's such an interesting question, and you got to think back and you've got to put yourself in your younger self, and you're like, what was I thinking at the time? And I remember one of the big reasons was I wanted to get bigger for rugby, as again, you were in a rugby background, but then think deeper on that, it's like, why did I want that? And I think there was some sort of alpha machoism that I wanted. I just wanted to be, big and strong and, that kind of feeling. So it's it wasn't just purely for aesthetics. And I remember actually when I first started lifting, I'm talking 17, 18, I went on a permanent bulk for 2 years. All I cared about was weight gain. I just because when I was playing rugby in school, our coach would weigh us every day like cattle, literally cattle.
That's so unhealthy.
Yeah, no, I'm nowadays you'd be cancelled for doing that. But the whole team would have to line up and you'd all get weighed. And, you would have your week by week weigh-ins and everyone pretty much had to go. It's Coach, I'm 50% body fat. I need to cut. He's no, we're bulking.
Everyone running to the bathroom immediately.
Yeah, literally. And so I remember I was always just obsessed with getting bigger and gaining weight. And it was then when I kind of finished school and finished I was a forward as well as flanker, finished the whole rugby scene and gotten more into lifting weights. That's when I discovered Z's and aesthetics. And it actually served me really well because I had all these years of bulking and gaining weight, being in a surplus behind me. So when I did go on my first cut, I actually had something to cut down to. So it was actually pretty perfect because so many kids nowadays, they'll go on TikTok and they'll see David Lade or whoever it is, and they'll just immediately want to cut down and lose weight, whereas they haven't got years of gaining a foundation of strength. So I think it's interesting how trends come and go, and we can have these characters who can shape a generation almost. But I remember I saw Z's and I was like, okay, well, I want to get lean, but thankfully I had a good few years behind me. But so to think back what I was thinking back then, I just wanted to be big. I was literally it was pain and gain, at the start we was I'm hot, I'm big. Yeah, it's so good. Insert Mark Wahlberg clip here. But that was my main motivation back then. And of course, to get girls as well and just to look physically better. And then, you go throughout your years and you realize, oh, there's so much more to this, and that like it actually just makes me feel amazing, and it's such an outlet for everything else.
Have you ever had a negative relationship with the aesthetic-driven side of things? Because that's one of the reasons I'm so drawn to performance-focused goals, is because when I have been very lean in the past, about 18, 19 years old, I managed to get to about 7.5%, 8% body fat. And I look back at the photos now and I was like, Christ, I was in really good shape. But I remember the sacrifices at that age that I sort of took on to be in that shape. But when I was that lean, I wanted to be leaner. I was looking at photos of myself being like, oh, nah. You need to diet harder, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I just decided it wasn't actually the right thing for me. That's not to say it's the wrong thing for other people, but I've gained a lot more from performance-driven goals because of that process-driven goal setting that we've already discussed, but also because it means that my self-worth is less tied into the way that I look and more in the way I perform, which I have a bit more control over on a sort of day-to-day, month-to-month, week-to-week basis. So have you ever had any challenges with that, given that your visual appearance is so much a part of how you can define your success in fitness?
Yeah, hugely. Okay, so always had, when you're dieting down, you get a little bit of food focus, and especially at the beginning, I didn't really learn much about flexible dieting, moderation, IIFYM, which can of course be taken too far, but I think the overall message of that
there was a Pop-Tarts only phase on YouTube, wasn't there?
There was a Pop-Tart era. But so I had, definitely some unhealthy, obsessive eating habits in hindsight before I kind of educated myself more on that whole field. But I'll distinctly remember, okay, the first time I competed in a men's physique competition. Oh my God, afterwards, I had a full-blown eating disorder, like, for months. Like, it honestly, I did a video on this at the time, years ago. It's one of my most viewed videos, actually, where I just sit on a couch and spoke about it. And it's actually great to speak about it again, because I haven't spoken about it in so long. But in hindsight, it was crazy. So I was quite young. I think I was like maybe a year or two into YouTube, so I would have been 23, 24, which, I looking at myself in those videos, I was like a baby, I looked so young. And so I dieted down for this show. It's so funny how different men's physique was back there. It's like we actually looked like, men's physique, and now it's like Olympia bodybuilders is the standard. And so I looked pretty good. I ended up placing really badly. It was like my first show ever. I came like 8th out of like a class of maybe 15. But either way, like, it was fine. I got really lean, but I put so much pressure on myself because I was documenting it on YouTube, and I had a little bit of a following, especially in Dublin at the time. And so I put so much pressure on myself, and of course I wasn't really following a flexible diet, which is even recommended as much as possible when you're competition prepping. And afterwards, the rebound I had was astonishing. Like, I'm talking like 10, 15 pounds overnight after the show, stuffing myself full of Domino's, ice cream, pulling over the car on the way home from the show to stuff myself. And also the fact that I didn't do well, it was really bad as well. I was like really hard on myself, and I was like, fuck this. I was like, oh, I'm just going to eat whatever. And the rebound was so bad, okay? And then you see yourself going from, shredded on stage, all tanned up, to just like an overnight transformation. Makes you feel even worse. And it's like a cycle. You turn to food again. And I was like this. It was like I was under a spell. I literally could not control my diet for, I would honestly say, like 8 to 12 weeks. And then I remember it was on like week 10 post show. I went on like a lads holiday where there was like loads of drink, beers every day, chips and pizza was the main diet. And that made me look even worse. And I just felt so bad. And like, I was after that, it actually I thought I was never going to be able to control myself eating again. And thankfully, I didn't have to go to a specialist because, I do recommend doing that, seeing someone who specializes if it does get really bad, like eating disorders, especially in men, is something that, we need to talk about a little bit more. But I ended up just kind of growing out of it, and, I realized I took it too far. And that's when I started learning about flexible dieting from, Alan Aragon, Lyle McDonald, the guys who like wrote the book on it pretty much. And it taught me such a lesson to not do these intense cuts, not fluctuate in body weight so much, not take such a black and white approach to your diet, and follow just a more sustainable approach. So it was a tough lesson, but it taught me a lot, and it was head wrecking for those couple of weeks. And I've never actually experienced anything like it, and it was very educational, I guess, because now I actually understand how difficult the world of diet and training can be for some people. And the other way, we're so prone, like we're obviously athletic guys in shape now. When we see people who aren't in shape, it's easy for us to say, oh, come on, just don't be lazy, or come on, you can be better than that. But it's like going through that really crazy time for me, it opened my eyes and it taught me to be a little bit more empathetic towards people that do struggle with their diet. So that was a crazy time.
It's the psychology of it that's often easy to forget, isn't it? Because ultimately you came from it was a come down, essentially. It was you'd had this IV drug in your veins for however many months the prep was, and then whoop, out it comes. Yeah. And well, what do I do now? Well, I'll just eat. I need to do something that's intense. I'm going to eat. Yeah. I'm going to. Oh well, now I look terrible. Oh, what am I going to do? I'm going to eat more. So it's just that the switch is completely flipped. And I had something similar post double brutal in September. So what are we now? We're end of November rather, and I've genuinely blacked out. But it's just the amount, like I was working 75, 80-hour weeks on the businesses and training 30 hours a week on top of them in the prep for that, and it was brutal. Like it's not something I'd recommend. It's not something I'm proud that I got to the end of it, but it was unhealthy getting there and coming out the other side, having got through it. The pride and sort of happiness in doing so, but also the come down from sleep deprivation from that IV effect being ripped out for me means that the sort of forced relaxation I've had to take means that from a training, from a diet, from a general habitual point of view, I've just felt like I'm cruising for a little while, which I haven't enjoyed, and then I'm hard on myself because I'm cruising for longer than I should be. But when I try and focus things hard in again, maybe I'll go a little bit too aggressively, which I'm not quite ready for. And it's all these challenges that ultimately you'll only understand for yourself if you put yourself in the arena and actually have to figure them out. Because you can read books, you can listen to conversations like this one, but the psychology of it, you don't know how you're going to react until you're forced to react to it. So for me now, I've been quite focused on my return to training, return to dieting control. And by dieting control, I just mean not eating like a toddler.
Yeah.
But like I can, because my training volume's so high normally, I can get away with eating an awful lot, but having to adjust to not doing that when I'm just hungry and wanting to eat all the time because of this big period of focus, I feel like I should be relaxing and enjoying all these things. It's been a sort of challenging couple of months where I've had to really stop myself every once in a while and be like, well, actually, why are you being hard on yourself here? Why are you looking at it in this way? And asking myself those questions has been very valuable, by the sounds of things, as it was for you coming off the back of that show, and has made you much more sustainable to this point. But throughout that period of time, obviously post-show to now, there's been a lot of growth, there's been a lot of focus, and YouTube is a ever-changing beast. You're playing somebody else's game, and this is something that I'm constantly learning. So from a selfish point of view, there's going to be a lot for me to learn here. But the strategy and entertainment and growth focus that you took, what was the focus? What were your guiding metrics? What were your North Stars in terms of, right, I want to grow the channel, I want to grow my network, I want to grow the business. How did you approach things? So for anyone listening that's maybe considering starting a YouTube channel or maybe has one and wants to grow it, how did you build yours to the capacity that it is now?
Yeah, so I said to myself, and there's a video at the time, it's honestly like 3 videos in, and I'm like, it's still there, like I'm again, 22-year-old Rob, in this like weird shared accommodation, just the camera quality's on an iPhone. I'm very fond looking back on that.
It's taped to a wall for a while.
It is taped to a wall.
It wasn't even a tripod. Yeah,
gold era. And I said, I was like, I want to be one of the biggest names in the fitness industry, and I won't stop until I get there. So I said to myself, I said that out loud, and I was like, okay, like, how would you do that? Like, Rob, if you were to tell yourself, if you were to answer your own question, what would it be? And I said, well, I'm going to have to help more people get into fitness. That's kind of the North Star, is I just got to improve people's lives through the metric of fitness. So that's all I know. That's what I'm good at. So that's how I'm going to do it. And then so I started making so much informative videos, covered every single topic. And then also, and here's a tactic, is you do the viral shit like collaborations or the calorie challenges that aren't necessarily that informative, but they reach more people, and then you get them in, and then you give them the legit information. And I got a very funny comment at the time. It was like, came for the Irish guy eating 20,000 calories, stayed for the good information. So that was one method, and that's something that you can still do today is, you can do the crazy viral stuff, the attention grabbing stuff, but if you do want to build a community, you need to do these stuff like podcasts and informative Q&As. I think podcasts are just the way to do it nowadays. I think if you really want to gain a viewer for life, a long form conversation is just the way to do it. Like when you look at like some of the most influential people in the world, like for example Joe Rogan, just the biggest podcast in the world, people will listen to 3 hours.
People watch it. That's what I don't understand. I'll only listen to something of that length in the car on a long trip because it's the only time I can devote that block of time. Whereas people just sitting there and watching 3 hours, you could watch the Return of the King extended edition in that time. So it's like, this will go out on video platforms in its full format as well. And I personally don't watch podcasts in this format, but I think it's amazing that people do.
Yeah, it's nuts. And so that's the way like you can build such a hardcore community, is when you just provide so much value and you get people who are watching these longer form videos. So that's why I see a lot of young lads and they're doing like TikTok and Reels, which is amazing for getting, those crazy high views and they're very attention grabbing. But I think you should always have somewhere to push those viewers onto longer form stuff like YouTube or podcasts as well. I think podcasts are particularly powerful, and I try to go on as much of them as possible. I need to start my own. I just want to do it right. But then I'm also like, you can reach so much people when you just have a webcam and some good lighting and a microphone. But so that would be my first tip, is to do the viral stuff, but also rope people in with the informative stuff that will help their lives improve. Whichever way you kind of know best about. And then so the next thing is, of course, collaborations, okay? This is a collaboration right now. This is so important. And I'll never forget when I first started out in Ireland, no one, still to this day, there's hardly any people doing YouTube, hardly any people doing fitness YouTube, never mind. There's like 5 of us, okay, if even. So at the time I was like, I collaborated with like, anyone I could, but I was like, I'm going to need to like get out of my comfort zone and go to these expos, go to these events, and fly myself over to America, Texas, LA to meet more people in my industry. And obviously I didn't have much money at the time, and like plane tickets were thousands for a return sometimes, and hotels and everything. But it was one of the most important things, was networking in those beginning days. Just so important. So the 2 main things is 3 even, is get the viral stuff out there, rope people in, provide value as well, especially in longer form if you can, and also network with other people in your industry. And also a little added on one for the networking, okay? Don't go to someone like you're just starting out. Don't go to someone like 2 million subscribers. Find people that are just slightly better than you, okay? So that you can kind of collaborate, get their audience, and then you'll keep, the collaborations will keep getting bigger and bigger. But you got to start off small.
It's interesting that excuse me. One of the things you said there around taking risks, looking at the cost of flights and committing and going over, it's no different to any other business. But I think what people often don't realise is that putting videos on YouTube is not just vanity and doing it. It's a delivery mechanism for views, which is a ad revenue generator, as well as an opportunity to leverage into business, into brand deals, into further impact, and as you said, getting more people into fitness. It's not just a jaunt.
Yeah, so like I've started, multiple business. I've started an events business where I bring, CEOs and creators together to talk about their journey. So that's events. I've started a pancake business. I've started a fitness app. I've started a high ticket coaching business, and I've also started a YouTube channel. And I will tell you now, the toughest one's YouTube. Okay, I'm telling you, people that say oh, YouTube's not a business. YouTube, it's just social media. You're running a TV channel. It's called a YouTube channel for a reason. Just as the same way, I think a podcast is just like that as well, because you have to pretty much build a studio. You know, like it's not just like starting an Instagram or starting a TikTok. It is kind of brick and mortar in a way. Like you gotta set up and everything. And so as coming from someone that has started multiple successful, profitable businesses, YouTube is a tough one, and it is not as easy as people think.
No, it isn't. It isn't. It's something I've learned over the years, and actually going back to one of the things you said, where I've been really reluctant over the years, at my own detriment, and I fully own this, is I haven't wanted to lean into the sort of generic, trendy, viral stuff because it doesn't necessarily fit what I'm trying to put across, but that is cutting off the reach. And given the amount that we invest in the channel, because the nature of my training is very difficult to film, but we're also very proud to film it to the standard that we do.
I was about to say the cameraman is the real star of the
show. But we've got thousands of pounds worth of kit. I'm looking at a 400mm Tamron lens to my left, which is useful for like 4 shots. But when we get them, great. But the actual return on investment on those shots is huge. So it needs to be treated like a P&L. It needs to be looked at seriously. But also, I think something I've been considering, anyone that's been watching the channel recently might have been able to pick up on it, but there's a bit more of a general wide net casting approach going on at the moment, because I think the work's been done in terms of the sort of quality of information, the quality of production, and the network's all there. What I'm not doing is the wider reaching stuff, which is ultimately viewing YouTube for YouTube rather than just as another channel to get people to the things that I've created, so the businesses essentially.
Yeah, your day in the life of a hybrid athlete is sick one.
But again, it's the amount of effort that has to go into documenting things when it involves outdoor stuff is it's not just the actual filming of itself, it's the admin that goes with it, because it gets in the way of the training as well. That's what I often have to remind people of, and have to remind myself of, is recently we've tried to get out of the habit of we're viewing things as. Traditionally, I've been viewing things as everything's, because of 2 businesses I run. I train between 15 and 30 hours at peak a week, which is just stupid. Not something I'd recommend, generally speaking. But it's
me clocking in like 6 hours.
it's very demanding. So it's a case of what am I training this week? How can we make a video about it? Rather than what video would do well? What does the thumbnail look like? What does the title look like? When can we film it this week? So it's completely flipping it on its head, and that's something that we're going to try and do end of this quarter and going into 2023. And actually, this month is scheduled just under 400,000 views, which will be peanuts to you, but just it's the biggest month of views we've ever had, off the back of the biggest month of views we've ever had last month. But this is about 1.8 times more than that. So fingers crossed, things will keep moving in that direction. But I'm deep in these analytics at the moment, so it's great to hear from your point of view what worked and what didn't. So the lesson for me is the virality stuff needs to be done, because you're only gonna if the information's great, people out there are only gonna see it if you bring them in, and that's what it's there to do. So it's maybe I'll be eating 10,000 calories next week. Who knows?
There you go. Yeah, well, look, you at least burn it off. I don't. You're saying about the way you're like, the effort of recording. Do you ever look at a training session where you don't record or anything? You're like, this is a bit of a luxury. Like you're like, sometimes it's nice to just completely do it on your own and you switch off.
I do, but it's I do, but then I come sometimes. There's some sessions I do where I feel, I wish I'd filmed that, because that would have been good content. Because the amount of times I've been like off the back of a big event and I've just done a YOLO deadlift or something, and I've ended up pulling like pretty much 100%, maybe just over, and I'm like, oh god, I wish I'd made a YouTube video about this. But then again, maybe the reason that I'm feeling so good and feeling so energetic and feeling so hyped about this heavy lift is because I don't have to talk to a camera between warm-up sets. That's the challenge. It's not people will only understand this once you put yourself in the arena, because it's a real demand. But you've been doing this much longer, and from a creativity point of view, to keep you can do things in cycles. So obviously, every once in a while you can redo a day in life, a full day of eating, a this, that, and the other. But you've been in this game for eight years now, and there must be periods where you're very, very hard on yourself. You're almost stressed out. How can I create a video this week that isn't just going to be shit or isn't just going to be there to tick the box? How do you deal with the pressure of that? Because YouTube is the main delivery, or has been the main mechanism for you building the businesses, and that must put a lot of pressure on the need to keep pushing things forwards week on week on week on week on week. Have you managed to reframe how you approach things, or is it a constant pressure that you feel?
Yeah, so it's very comparable to running an actual business and looking at the finances, and it's so stressful because it's like your views or your subscribers or anything. It's like putting your bank balance, in a business for everyone to see, and you're like, oh God, I need to always be better. I need to always be improving. And I found that is just the quickest way to take the joy out of everything. So Max actually always gets caught up in the views. He always complains about like the views of the algorithm, like kind of in a funny way. But I think it's just, that's a quick way to suck the joy out of it. So instead, I will just look at business and, look at sponsorships and how things are going in that sense. And because some videos will just flop and it's outside of your control. Sometimes, you'll just have a slow month. So I try to completely remove myself from that. And it's like, if you get caught up in the good months and caught up in the bad months, as an entrepreneur, this goes for anything, your emotions are going to be constantly like this. So you almost have to be stoic. Like, if it's a good month, all right, cool. If it's a bad month, all right, cool. So I try to remove myself from that, and it's actually something that I heard like Gary Vee talk about in like the very early days, and it's something that really stuck with me. So even like, years ago, I would follow the same approach to just not get too caught up with it and just ride the wave.
Goes back to the process over outcome thing as well, doesn't it? Because if you're enjoying what you're producing, it doesn't really matter what the views are. But in a very metric dominant world, it's so easy as humans to default to what's right there in front of us, isn't it?
Exactly. The YouTube studio, the analytics are so in your face. It's like, this video is performing worse than others.
10 out of 10. No.
10 out of 10. No. Yeah. Exactly. I'm like, 10 out of 10 is good, right? It means I ticked all the boxes. But yeah, so my piece of advice there would just not to get caught up in it, or you're just going to you're going to give yourself burnout pretty much, and you're not going to be in this game for too long if you're just constantly wrecking your head and giving yourself dog's abuse over a good month versus a bad month.
And then that's translatable across industry, corporations. It's not just YouTube. It's a case of and actually people's definition of success and financial metrics, because the obvious Western world metric of success is your current account. But life is much more grey and complex than that. So if you get caught up in the month-to-month cycle of what's coming in versus what's going out as your definition of success, it'll be very easy to label yourself as unsuccessful, when in reality you could be the happiest, most fulfilled person on the planet, which in my mind is a significantly higher return on your investment of time than the person with £1 billion. From my perspective,
I think compared to a lot of other creators, especially some in the fitness industry, that like give themselves burnout and that you make videos saying like how stressed they are and everything. I think I've been fairly relaxed and again quite stoic on the whole thing and not getting too worked up about it, and that's something I'm quite proud of. So you just got to take the good months with the bad and the bad months with the good.
On the flip side then, this is something that I've always struggled with, and I know I always will, to be honest. I've done some work on trying to sort of be better at it, but what I really struggle with is the pressure I put on myself based on the opportunity that I know is in front of me. And that is a case of, right, well, if you do this work which creates X, then that can lead to Y. And if I can visualize it, if I can understand it, then I will do it, or I will at least start moving towards it. But then it means that there can be some guilt that comes from not working as hard, or maybe having 15 pints that Saturday, whatever it ends up being, or maybe spending some time on a Sunday doing fuck all. It's just a case of, right, if there's opportunity out there that I can see, then I know that it's there for the taking. So I will occasionally put pressure on myself to constantly be moving towards those things that I'm confident I can sort of move towards with action. But
the Scotsman came out when you mentioned 15 pints.
Yeah, there we are. The English accent can be put to the side, but yeah, the upbringing in park benches at 14 years old, that'll never change. That'll never change. I mean, Irish, Scousers, Scots, all pretty similar, really. So essentially, you've capitalised on a lot of the opportunity that has been created through YouTube and just the general network and presence you've created online. But do you feel like you've missed out on things? Have you learned to process? Have there been ideas that you haven't pursued because of capacity? Have there been things that you've decided, yeah, that might work. Yeah, I could maybe do that. But actually, for my own well-being, for the bandwidth that I have to avoid burnout, I'm going to just say no to this opportunity. I'm going to say, you know what, I'll put that on hold for the time being, because your personality strikes me as somebody that's always go, go, go. Yeah. Which means that if you feel that something can be achieved, you're going to be the sort of person to take action towards it. But no man is an island. You can't do everything yourself. So how do you deal with the pressure of opportunity, knowing that there is always going to be more out there off the back of what you've created for yourself?
That is probably what I'm hardest on myself about. Like in my whole life is beating myself up for something that I could have done, and that's like, you know, shoulda, woulda, coulda. It's a terrible mindset, and it's useless in most cases. And so that's actually my girlfriend is great at slowing me down and being like, Rob, it's all right, you're doing great, chill out. But I'm always like, no, I could have done more. And I don't think it's a good mindset to have. And I think beating yourself up about what you could have done doesn't actually make you do more. You know, I don't think it actually makes you more productive or anything along those lines. So that's something that I really need to get better on, and that's something that I'm quite hard on myself about. And you know that quote, it's like, hell is when you get to the end of your life and you see what you could have been. Oh my God, that is a brutal one. Isn't it? It's bleak. Yeah. It's bleak. So that is something that a mindset that I try not to have. But I would say that is my biggest downfall, and that's when I am not so positive, is when I'm hard on myself and when I'm saying, oh, you could have done this, you could have done that better. But in hindsight, when I do beat myself up over that, I'm like, that didn't make me do more. It's not making me be better.
What does happiness actually mean to you, with that in mind then? How would you define it, and how would you define success?
I think the first word and the first feeling, and this comes from someone who used to not have any, and it's freedom. Okay, being able to kind of do whatever you want that day to a certain extent. And, you know, I used to work at 9 to 5, 9 to 6 actually were my hours when I was working an office job that I didn't like. And by the way, I'm not, like, for anyone listening, I'm not anti-corporate, anti-office job, but I'm anti-doing stuff that sucks the fucking soul out of you. You know? And so I remember just hating life so much, and every morning I would wake up depressed. And every morning I would just dread the next day, and I would just constantly think, is this it? You know, is this what my life is going to be like forever? So when I changed that, when I started going on this whole journey at the age of 22, when I walked into my boss's office and said, look, I'm just going to give this a shot. This can't be all that's for me. And he, to be fair, he was like, go for it. He was like, oh, good man. Probably because I was doing fuck all, you know, in work.
Thank God. We can replace him with somebody that makes us some more money. Jeez.
Yeah, exactly. Like, thank God that lazy motherfucker's gone. But so ever since that day, freedom has kind of stuck with me as just a pillar of what really makes me happy. So that would probably be my answer. Like sometimes, right, when I say to someone, if I'm asking them some questions, I go, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Because that's the true answer, you know. So what do you not have to think about? Just shoot it out, and for me, that would be freedom. And what about you for happiness?
So happiness is, and I've got a pretty clear but very deliberately vague answer to this: is spending time doing the things that I enjoy with the people I enjoy doing them with, and that's very wishy-washy, but it's meant to be, because I know that off the back of my downturn in mental health from 2014 to 2016, the reason that I put myself in that position was because I had such a black and white definition of success, and my definition of happiness was directly tied into that definition of success. So every day that wasn't me moving forwards to these goals that were 5 years hypothetically in the future, I was unsuccessful, which meant that I was unhappy, which then ultimately the spiral descended and descended to the point where I felt worthless. I felt useless. I felt like I wasn't contributing anything and that I had nothing left to live for, ultimately. So my definition now is ultimately around freedom as well. It's similar to yours, whereby I still do a lot of things I'd rather not be doing, but that's because I can't yet afford to subcontract every element of my life to different things, but that's something I'm building to be able to do. I still have to do a lot of the admin around running the businesses, but there's a lot going on at the moment to sort of fix that, to open me up to do things that I'm actually good at and enjoy. But I'm acknowledging that the process of building to that will be very rewarding once I get there as well. So it's constantly checking in with yourself on those questions, isn't it? And asking, well, what are the values that actually drive me? And how am I living my life in line with those values? And if you actually find that you're not, then you can take some positive steps forward to remove yourself from that. Because I'm like you, whereby I know people that love their corporate culture. I know people that love their jobs. They love the routine of X, Y, Z, and they've got their Saturdays, their Sundays, and they're back in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Yeah. They love that. That's not how I operate. I've always known it's never going to be. But the main thing is you need to ask yourself, is it fulfilling? Is it making you happy? Is it something that you're actually enjoying? Or is it just something that gives you the comfort and security of knowing you're getting paid at the end of the month? Because they're two very, very different things in my mind. And I think especially in the economy we're currently in, people need to be asking these questions. Otherwise, you're going to get ground down by the pumice stone of just the bigger guys, because the government don't really seem to be giving any sort of empathy whatsoever. Pay rises from
they ain't coming to help you.
Yeah, they're not. And pay rises from big corporations are not reflective of inflation. And working hours are getting more demanding. The sort of costs around the time that you have outside of work are becoming more demanding, which means that the balance of what can you enjoy, what can't you enjoy, what's making you comfortable is sort of out of whack. So people need to be asking these questions, I think. But I entirely agree with you. I'm very anti doing something that sucks the soul out of you, because it's not very valuable. But it's I think to answer your question succinctly, I'm kind of currently looking at myself from the top down in terms of what's everything going on across the businesses, across my training, across myself, across what's going on, and trying to streamline things a bit more so I can enjoy the essence of why I enjoy them without having the fucking bookkeeping or the charging the batteries for the cameras that I've forgotten to do as the things that make me not enjoy the day-to-day, because I'm very fortunate that I get to enjoy the day-to-day because of the freedom that's been created. So it's I think don't get complacent. Don't get complacent in any situation you're in, because if you stop asking these questions about yourself, you'll maybe lose sight of why you're behaving and acting and existing in the way that you are, and it'd be easier to stay constant than it would be to sort of claw back towards something. So yeah,
and I think it's also a brilliant time of year. So for anyone listening, it's like very end of November. We're just coming into December, and it's a great time of year to just do that little audit of yourself, and say, do I like the direction my life is going? What do I need to do to when the clock strikes 12 and the numbers change? What do I need to do for this arbitrary day to make the next year look a lot better? So I think it's a really good time of year, and this has got me really motivated to take a step back and take the month to, like, obviously in December, like we're saying, it's a wishy-washy month. Take the month to chill out, but also do like a life audit. So and ask yourself what's important to you.
So with that in mind, you're at a very critical point in your life, aren't you? Because you are amidst a big project in Marbella. So when did you actually close on the property? Because it was a bit of a scrap to get the one that you're in, wasn't it? Actually over the line. But now the stress, demand, and chaos of actually building it and renovating it must be front of mind.
So it's so interesting because it's something completely new to me. Like, obviously I'm good at events, I'm good at making online content, good at everything to do with fitness, I'm comfortable with that, but doing this was something just completely new, and I have to say it was like the highlight of my year. Like, it's like a really good feeling to like those like memes, it's like men just want to build, like men just want to like build something and own land, there's definitely like an animalistic primal something, and to be house proud. And so I'm in it now. I moved in about maybe a month and a half ago, but the majority of this year I got the keys on, funny enough, January 1st last year. And then January...
Stumbling in, still half cut.
yeah. It's like, this is the front door key. And so January, February was spent knocking it all down. And it was so funny. We were originally going to be like, we'll just lick a paint, a few changes here, and then just being a complete renovation, and became just like a thing. Like everyone got really invested in it. So January, February was knocking it down, just completely making it a shell. And then February, March, April, May was constructing everything. And then over the summer we're putting the nice tweaks on it, and then we moved in like I guess end of September. But like honestly, I'm still like I'm only getting like a couch, like you can see things are pretty bare behind me. So it's going to take like probably another 6 months to make it into a home. But one thing I really want to do is, so again, I'm an opportunist, right? I want to like make this complement my whole fitness business. So I would love to like do retreats in Marbella. I would love to do events, get like even, kind of the people that I do like VIP coaching with. Like I work with usually 10 guys, really hands-on, and then have the app for people that just want to get a custom training and nutrition plan. But I have like a close circle of people that I work really close with, so I'd love to have an event for those guys here. Even like get a bunch of content creators out to Marbella, do like podcasts all weekend, workout. So I really want to use this as like a really cool HQ and like make it into Marbella into like kind of a European fitness destination as it is becoming. It's not as what people used to think it was, when you just go get wasted. And I've been there myself. I used to work in a bar in the port when I was like 19. Crazy how things go. But now there's like all these massive gyms popping up, and it's becoming like a little bit more like how do I say, like hipster California, as in like there's like healthy cafes everywhere, and it's less about a bunch of scows with Liverpool jerseys shouting in the street. By the way, Liverpool's one of my favourite places in the UK. Just saying,
you
crazy.
chose them. You just said whatever comes into your head first. That says a lot. You said it. You said it. That is.
They're definitely the craziest. They're the most like Irish. That's why I say that.
Signed, sealed, delivered. Yeah. They are most like Irish. Very close relationship, Scousers and Irish, isn't it?
Yeah, I was in a shoot with Alfie actually. It was like 2019, and I was in Liverpool, and there's just Irish flags everywhere. I was like, this is great. I feel really at home here. It's like every Irish pub everywhere. But so I want to make it not so football hooligan and make Marbella a really good like fitness destination. So there's a lot that I want to do with this place, and you're of course welcome over anytime.
Fantastic. It'll be a very different trip to when I was last in Marbella a few years ago, I think. But it's a great part of the world. And the weather's fantastic. Golden Mile beach and everything. It's just it's stunning. And the variety of gyms, as you said, is brilliant. It is really good. They've got a 70.3. They've got an Ironman 70.3 in April time, which I've been considering for a while. But it's a bit hillier than I'd like my 93 kilo body weight. So we'll see. Is that the Ironman one? Yeah. So it's the half distance out of I think it's out of Portmanus. I think it's the beach just to the. It
is. Yeah, I actually saw it like. I did not take part. I saw it from a distance of everyone.
Binoculars.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, don't get too close. But like, I'm not even just saying this. Like, it looked unbelievable, and it's something that I want to do. At some stage of my life. How would you like get started at it?
The seed has been planted, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Years of physique shows, all this it's done. This is the end. This moment, what are we? 12:03 on Tuesday the 29th of November is the day Rob Lipsett became hybrid as fuck. So
there we go.
Essentially, to non-cynically answer your question, but we will be following up on this off screen afterwards. The baseline for anyone in your position where it's been a sort of aesthetic bodybuilding hypertrophy dominant background, what you will be lacking most is aerobic capacity, and zone 2 training is something I speak about very openly a lot on the podcast actually, because it's got broad psychological and physiological benefits. Psychologically, I think it's a very good place to put yourself in because it gives you that sort of peaceful moving meditation, I'll call it. But I appreciate I should probably say what zone 2 is. So if you, depending on what heart rate metric you work off, you've got MAF, you've got max heart rate, you've got lactate heart rate threshold, which is what I use. So you basically take a certain percentage of that heart rate. It's a very low intensity percentage, and that is your zone 2, which is essentially, if you don't have a heart rate monitor, a pace that you could move at where you could talk before being quite out of breath. So for somebody that's not very aerobically trained, it might be walking very quickly. It might be walking uphill. It might be running very, very slowly. It might be running at a sort of moderate pace. It depends on the person's capacity. But for anyone that comes from a gym background, Zone 2 is very alien to them because it's very deliberated, very patient, very steady, which means that when people try running and hate running, it's because they're running at Zone 4, Zone 5, and it's really quite hard work. So Zone 2 work is essentially, it's probably what walking uphill, step machine, bodybuilding sort of cardio has been for a long time, but really building that capacity, because that's ultimately the foundation of all aerobic work. Well, aerobic fitness is the foundation of all fitness, and then you can start to work in some interval, sort of Zone 4, Zone 5 stuff, and that'll build your capacity. Then you can get a lot more work done on the bike than you can on your feet. So sitting on a turbo trainer, you can build a lot of work before you then get out into the roads, and then you start to piece these things together. Swimming is where...
That's the scary one.
Yeah, but so many people can you swim? If you can swim, you're fine. It's sort of the logic because I hadn't, before I got into triathlons, I hadn't swam since I was about 12 and getting my Frosties badges on my towels, and I was really worried about. I was like, how am I going to adapt to this? I couldn't swim more than 4 lengths at once without being gassed. But you adapt so quickly because it's a new movement pattern. So when you get used to the movement pattern, it feels so much more natural very quickly. But it depends what a person's goals are. If they want to do a sub 1 hour Ironman swim, then okay, then this is a different conversation. But if you just want to get to the point where you can swim 1.9k or 3.8k, I'm confident that people have the movement proficiency and adaptability to be able to do that just by getting in the pool more regularly.
So how much time would you have to spend in the water?
So realistically, I think you could be swimming a K non-stop in 6 weeks' time with 3 pool sessions a week.
So how many hours would 8K be?
30 minutes 3 times a week. One quality focus, one drill focus, and then one sort of real steady volume focus. Three times a week, 6 weeks. I reckon you can swim a K or more without stopping. And think, why the fuck could I never do that before? How weird.
My fear is that I'll be swimming and then all of a sudden I'll just I won't be able to go anymore, and I'll just go.
Oh well, this is it. This is how I go.
Yeah.
But the only other thing to add there is that if you've got more muscle mass, the actual, for anyone watching, you'll see, but the actual movement restriction because of the shape of your body will slightly change your movement patterns, and this is why with Omnia we've created that sort of niche for the hybrid specifics, because triathlon coaches, swimming coaches will be very used to triathlon specific, swimming specific body types. But if you've got big lats, if you've got built up rear delts, then your actual movement pattern is going to be very different. Which you of course do. That was indeed a compliment, but it's a case of for anyone wanting to get into these things from a strength or a hypertrophy background, there are some specific considerations to bear in mind. But ultimately, start really, really easy and really, really steady, because they're skills. Running is a skill, riding a bike is a skill, swimming is a skill. So it's like going into the gym and picking up a dumbbell for the first time. You don't know what you're doing really until a bit further down the line. It's the same with, whilst we can all run, we can all swim, we can all ride a bike. Anyone can go into a gym and pick up a dumbbell. It doesn't mean that you're doing it as efficiently as you could be. And I think there's a masculine arrogance in us that comes from it certainly was for me, coming from a powerlifting and a sort of hypertrophy background, where you just assume because you train, you'll be able to translate it. But I think swimming you'll adapt to much more quickly than you would give yourself credit for. And for somebody that used to jump on a plane and fly over to go to random expos in America, I think you should probably just get in a pool, Rob.
Yeah, exactly. What I like what you said there is about motor patterns. So it's funny when someone, even when I haven't maybe done a squat or a deadlift or a certain movement in ages, just maybe I had some downtime, it feels new. You're all wobbly and it feels like a foreign movement really. So this is what I imagine what you said. It's you'll just get used to it and you'll improve very quickly just from the act of doing it.
I actually swam. This is hilarious because people will be like, what? He's literally sacked off swimming for so long. But since the double brutal, so since when did I get out of the water? 9:53. Since 9:53 a.m. on September the 10th, I haven't swam once because I had so much volume to get into swimming that 7.8k for the double brutal. and came out the water and just have had no desire to swim, none at all, until yesterday, where I got in the pool and I just did 10 by 100 meters, moderate pace, and I genuinely felt like I'd forgotten how to swim. Like, my pacing times were okay. It wasn't like as bad as I thought it'd be, but my actual movement patterns, it felt really, really alien. But I know when I go in next time, I'll kind of be a bit fearful because it felt so bad last time. But when I get in, which will be tomorrow, I'll immediately feel much better because I've got that one session banked where I've moved and I could feel set by set things improving because I wasn't thinking about it, but instinctively, oh yeah, that's how you do that. Oh, okay, on you go. But I felt big. I felt big. I felt heavy, even though I'm no bigger and no heavier. I felt myself much more in the water, which just goes down to that efficiency and motor pattern piece.
Yeah. And do you do outdoor swimming leading up to the competition?
Yeah, loads. Like, I do.
Is that not ever like a fucking pain when you're in the UK?
Oh, mate. Well, I'm in Scotland of all places as well, but
it's the worst.
I'll build it into resilience narratives around because again, like it is shit. It is but the thing is, like, it is so shit that every time I get in my wetsuit, every time I put my dry robe on, get in the car, I am driving the whole way being like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Just go to the pool. It's the same thing. Like, you know how to sight, you know how to swim in the open water. You don't need to be doing this. I get out. Oh fuck, it's cold. Oh, right, dry robe, right, okay, chuck it in the car, run to the sea, oh, feet in, oh, that's so cold, I don't want to do this. You get in, it's up to your nipples, and you're like, this is terrible, I do, like, nah, and then you put your head under and you start swimming, and then you're moving, and you're like, oh, nice, big win, like, it's a proper scrap with yourself, and that's what I think is really valuable about it, and that's where the cold element comes in as well, because there's also the fear, like, I still have odd moments where I just expect to be mauled by a sea monster in a lake.
yeah, you feel it's gonna like bite you on your stomach when you're
but it's like I just get inside my own head because I've always had that fear. So, but again, the more time I spend in the open water, the less moments I have like that, and the more I get used to the cold, and the more generally tough, resilient on a day-to-day basis I feel. Like if somebody phoned me and said, "Oh, yeah, that bank transfer that you needed in for this morning's not come through because of our finance department putting in the wrong code," I wouldn't have a meltdown. It'd be like, oh, right, okay, what can we do? It's just that sort of practical mentality of, yes, this is going to be shit, but I'm going to get in the water, it's going to be cold, I'm going to do my swim, and I'm going to get out. So over the winter, I'm going to do a K open water I did this last year as well, it was really valuable. A K open water outdoors every week. So I'll be neoprened up to my eyeballs. The only bit of my skin will be visible is like neck and face. Yeah. But you still feel the cold big time. It feels like somebody's sitting on your head, which is really quite weird because the water will be like 6 degrees, which is just taking the piss. So I've just found 1K open water in the cold over Scotland over the winter means that when I get to March, I feel like an animal because everybody's like, oh, it's so cold for me to get in the water. I'm not going to do that till April, and then that's where I start building the volume. But it just goes to show, like motor patterns and the psychological peaks and troughs that we've spoken about. I did not want to swim for 2.5 months. I had no reason to swim for 2.5 months because I know I can pick it back up. So I haven't been hard on myself. I got in yesterday, felt a bit alien, but we'll move things forwards.
Are you a cold shower man?
Pardon?
Are you like a cold shower man?
No, I'm not. I probably would be if I didn't get in the sea.
Yeah,
but
you cover that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I've ticked the box. But I'm keen. I've been keen to get like a ice bath set up downstairs, because it does wake you up. It does wake you up big time. But I just feel that, I'd want to properly just jump in, submerge myself, get it done, and make it a routine every morning. Whereas a shower is a bit more of a, I don't know, it's a bit less of a break point because it's kind of in the house. It's kind of something you do anyway. It feels like a bolt on rather than a separate thing entirely. I'd almost want, right, okay, it's cold. Get outside, dump yourself in, towel on, into the hot shower you go. That's the day done. So we'll see. Have you got any value from it?
Yeah. So again, it's like there's a lot of like people peddling a lot of bullshit about cold showers and stuff. Like it promotes fat loss and all this. There are health benefits to it, but people make it out to be a lot better than it is. I think just the main benefit from cold water therapy, whatever you want to call it, cold water immersion, is just doing shit you don't want to do.
Yeah, agreed.
I think that's literally it. And so it's a funny story on how I got into it. Was my heat? I was in Dublin and like my hot water was just broke. Like I don't know. Yeah, and every day I'd be like, oh, I need to call them up and get that fixed. And every day I would just kind of forget about it and leave it. And then I would have to take a shower every day. So I end up doing 30 days of cold showers just because I kind of forgot to get it fixed.
It sounds like an elaborate YouTube lie.
Yeah, it's actually, I'm planting the seed there. Yeah. And so then I ended up like being like, oh, it got to day 30 and I was like, oh, this is fine. And I kind of look forward to it. It wakes me up so much. It's like, I don't have to rely on my 10 coffees a day anymore. And so that's how I got into the cold showers. And funny enough, Christian Guzman from Alfleet he came to visit me at that time. And he came into my house and he's like, I'm just going to take a quick shower. We get ready for today. And I was like, yeah, go ahead. And he was like, there's no hot water here.
You Brits. You bloody Irish and Brits, no hot water, all this. Yeah.
I was like, you need to up my Alfleet commission so I can get on the hot water.
It was an elaborate con, wasn't it? Yeah,
it's elaborate just to up my salary. No. But yeah, so I like it, but just for mainly just to make me do shit I don't want to do.
That's about as far as there's small evidence on recovery benefits and things, but I do think there's a lot of recovery protocol in the fitness industry that has spiraled completely out of control.
Oh, it's gone into the biohacker area, which you're just like, oh, come on.
The vast majority of people, you need to be living a 99% perfect life to even consider those smaller details. Whereas there's people that aren't even sleeping properly that are then thinking that they need to be doing X, Y, and Z. It's just it's the pyramid of hierarchy is the way that I look at it, and I know that yes, there's a lot of benefits around ice baths and cold water therapy that are being thrown around. I just kind of stay out of the narrative because my view is the same as yours. I don't want to do it, so if I do it, I'll feel better. And I know anecdotally, I feel buzzing whenever I do, which is a good boost. So there's the mental health benefits, and then people talk about the neurochemical side of things as Huberman Lab stuff on this. Yeah. But I haven't got too much into the weeds with it because I'm kind of just going off my own experience because I've never committed the time to really know exactly what it'd look like from my personal point of view, opinion-wise. But I know whenever I get in and out of cold water, I feel great, and I know that it's something I don't want to do. From a low-hanging fruit for day-to-day resilience building, it's very, very useful. But it doesn't so is running a really hard effort 5K that you don't want to do. So is the gym session at 4 a.m. that you need to do before getting on a flight. So is committing to a new habit that is going to be challenging, but once you get it moving, you're okay. So is the first couple of weeks of a diet. It's all these things. It's not one size fits all. This is the best thing. Let's sell this PDF on why this is the best. It's the mechanism of building resilience and self-development, I think, is choosing the least comfortable or the less comfortable option repeatedly, and you'll build. But also knowing that resilience can go dormant, which is why over December, when I know I'll be having more cheese boards, I'll be drinking more, I'll be probably a little bit more flexible on my schedule. If I'm maintaining that 1K swim a week in the open water, that will keep me quite grounded and not push me too far away from the norm where it starts to affect me mentally. So I think it's just being self-aware of what actually makes you tick and what you respond well to, and more often, well, as often as you can, without obviously being ridiculous, like walking to London rather than getting the train. But it's choose the less comfortable and harder option if it's right there in front of you, because it will be beneficial for your resilience and just general tolerance for bullshit. And there is a lot of bullshit in the modern world.
So much. I think there's just a lot of putting the cart before the horse in the fitness industry. There's so many people that would like to do the cold showers or take a certain herbal supplement instead of just getting their sleep right, getting their training right, and getting their diet right. I think they're the three foundations that you should really ace before even looking into any of this other kind of biohacking stuff.
Agreed. There's a rabbit hole that I'm kind of itching to go down, but I think for the sake of time, and not getting cancelled, let's not. But it's I agree. I think it is.
We'll save up a round two.
Yeah. We'll book it in and make it very specific. Here's a list, and we'll compare. Yeah. What's yours, Rob? What's mine? We'll see where we meet in the middle. But no, very, very fantastic conversation. Thank you for coming on. People will know, but where's the best place for people to find you? Best specific places for each of the businesses, and let us know.
Yep, so YouTube, just Rob Lipsett, my name, same on Instagram. I'm lucky enough to have the same kind of handle across everything. Very, very proud of that one. For fuelcakes.com, the best protein pancakes you'll ever have. They're currently out of stock, but by the time you're listening to this, maybe they will be back in stock. We're kind of making
Christmas
5
gifting.
new flavors, exactly 5 new flavors, and we're changing the manufacturers to make an even better product. So that's actually something that's taken up a lot of my time, but again, very fulfilling. And as we spoke about in the podcast, enjoying the journey. Game Plan is my coaching service and my app. So again, just at Game Plan on Instagram, you can find that. And yeah, you'll find everything from YouTube and Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff.
Fantastic. Thank you very much and have a good rest of the day.
Likewise, Ferg. Appreciate it.